Hi, it's been a while. Welcome back to another episode of this special limited series that I have named Nosedive. And some might be curious as to why I have named it as such, besides the obvious nose reference. Well, first of all, everything else has been used, right? And second of all, I was thinking, this YouTube channel really took a nosedive after such a promising first 2 years. And I just thought it would be funny to name this series Nosedive. Um, so that's the origin. Some may argue that it didn't take a nosedive, but it definitely has not been nurtured or tended to in the way that I had hoped. And I'm just thankful that people are still watching my archived videos. Um, but with that being said, yeah, and that's just my sort of dark sense of humor. So welcome. For this second episode of Nosedive, I have my friend Mark Sage of Clandestine Laboratories. It has been almost 3 years since I hosted him. On January 31st of 2023, he was a guest for the Effluvium series. And that was way back when. That was the first season of Effluvium when I actually had a panel. And there were four people on that panel for that particular episode. So this is a great opportunity for me to have a rich discussion with Mark one-on-one. So I do look forward to that. I currently let's see, StreamYard has changed a lot in recent months. So I am just looking, oh, I found it. We currently have 6 people who are tuned in to the live stream. Please don't hesitate to leave a comment or ask a question in the chat or just say hello or share your scent of the evening, morning, afternoon, whatever time it might be from your location. My scent of the evening I have chosen, and I will apply some here. This is a release from a new house called Anti, or should I say Ainty, because there is a long A symbol or accent above the A. A really cool new brand. Um, Now, this is a bit confusing because on their website, they say that this is a Marc Antoine Corticchiato composition, yet on their sample set and also on their box, they refer to this as a Karine Vincent Spener composition. So I don't know if they worked on it together or if the listing on the website is incorrect or if it's incorrect here. Um, but I'm not so concerned with that as I am with how beautiful this composition is. So I'm going to put some on to enjoy while, ooh, that's the inaugural spray. And I'm going to wear some while we have our live stream. So this is Antinous. Antinous. There is an umlaut above the U. This was released this year along with all the other fragrances from this new house. There is a lovely balsa wood or some type of soft wood casing, encasing or box that the fragrances are enclosed in. And the story for this one is it is a botanical fragrance for a mystical, interesting Mysthical rather, for a mystical infused with a Mediterranean bouquet of cumin, sage, and sea salted skin. What I've noticed is that there is a sizable amount of clary sage, to be exact. It's really lovely in the opening. This is an overdose of clary sage, which is not really common in perfume. Um, but I don't doubt that there is also white sage in it as well. Maybe multiple types of uh, oils in the salvia family. So it's a beautiful creation. I will be sharing my thoughts on that in the not so distant future. We have one comment in the chat here from our old friend Pat Lester. Hello, JJ. Long time no see. Great to have you here, my friend. We're going to get this conversation started very soon. I'm just going to allow for a few more people who were interested in watching this conversation live to join in the live stream. We have 6 people who are tuned in currently. One of you have spoken up, our dear Pat Lester. Let's hear from the other 5. Don't be shy. The chat is right there. Just say hi or just say here or share your scent of the day or night. We have sense for M, my lovely friend M. Good evening. It's so nice to see you, my friend. I'm listening in while doing the dishes, so interaction may be limited. Just wanted to let you know that I'm here. My scent of the evening is Cinema from Iselin. Wonderful to have you tuned in. So there are, let's see here. We have 2 individuals who've chimed in, and we have 3 more who are watching currently. Let's hear from the 3 of you. Don't be shy. Why don't we get this started? I'm not going to keep Mr. Sage waiting for too long. He's looking rather thrilled here. I can see from the backstage. There's a smile. There's that smile of yours. Okay. Why don't we get this started? We'll have a conversation. We didn't have any sort of strict agenda, but we're going to be covering a few different things, including some misinformation that is disseminated throughout the community of fragrance enthusiasts. Always a great topic. It is still everywhere. So we're going to dispel some of these beliefs and notions that are plaguing the fragrance conversation online. We have another person who's tuned in here. Kevin McDonald, hello. Hi, back to you. Currently wearing and loving Parfum 2 from D. April, or Parfum 2 from D. April. I am not familiar with that one, but I would love to hear more about it and probably experience it myself. 7 people tuned in. I think this is a perfect time for us to begin our conversation. So without further ado, let's bring in Mark Sage of Clandestine. Hello, Mark.
Hello, how are you?
Great. And you?
Fairly well. Getting over a
I'm
cold
loving the
still.
beanie cap. Love that look.
It usually keeps me from getting sick, although not this week.
I have never been able to find one that fits me well because I have a larger than average head. I have a Charlie Brown head, so
Mine's
it's
pretty.
very hard to find really big beanies.
Mine's pretty large. This is knit though, so
Yeah,
That's
yeah. On me, they just stretch out. They just look more like a yarmulke on the top here. They don't really, I just have a big head. Well, don't in the literal sense. I don't want people to think in the figurative sense. Um, so yeah, this is great. I'm glad that you could join this special series. This is just a limited series. I'm going to be doing probably about 6 to 8 of them on a monthly basis. And I was thinking of some of the great people that I had in the past that I hadn't yet hosted. I thought that I was just going to close things up with effluvium, but then other people reached out to me and said, "Oh, like I never had an opportunity." I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to necessarily resurrect that series. Why don't we do something, that's a slightly different format?" So it's great that we can have this one-on-one conversation. So tell me, what has been going on your end? Share with us some details of some recent developments
in the last 3 years.
in the last 3 years since you've been on the channel. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, I didn't realize that was your first season. That was kind of my first season as
Yeah.
a perfumer who was at all known publicly. And since then, it's been a really wild, really wild ride. A lot of releases. The most significant news really is Pool Boy Phenomenon, which
Right.
was a fragrance I released in, I think, the fall of 2022.
I
And
think
it
so,
was,
because it was not long before you were on that live stream. Yeah.
yeah, and it was a total flop at first. Like most of my fragrances, I don't, I don't do really advertising and promote myself much, and I just kind of put it out there. I don't even remember if I did an email announcement for the time. And it just kind of sat there for a while. And there was one person who just absolutely loved it, and told me he had a collection of 1,000 bottles, and it was not just his favorite summer fragrance, but now one of his favorite, top five favorite fragrances ever. And he compared it to all the summery stuff that Jacques Cavalier did for, I don't remember which brand it was for, and I had to look that up because, of course, I'm like, I live under a rock in terms of the perfumery world. And so, I was happy to hear that. And then the next spring, I went to Cuba. Actually, I think this was the fall of 2023 it was released. Next spring, I went to Cuba and gave a sample to our Studley Cuban tour guide, and he was wearing it the next day, and I didn't recognize it on him actually. And it smelled fabulous. I mean, fragrances smell different in up close versus the diffusion, and on his skin, I don't know, the heat. It smelled just incredible, and I started to realize, wow, that was pretty good fragrance. And so I started to tell people that, and suddenly, I guess the weather was turning warm, and it just caught fire. It started to, and since then, it's just been a crazy thing. I don't know. I'm not actually. I'd be curious if you can think of any other fragrances in the indie uh, perfumery world that have really caught on like Po' Boy did. I don't know if you.
I think that yours really actually stands out. I think that it was just sort of
It's wild.
I wouldn't say it's an accidental success. I think it just everything fell into
It,
place
it hit the sweet
in
spot for people,
and
and
yeah,
it
because
and
it's kind of like the dark horse because like I thought it was a really cool one, but I didn't think it would really be like the bestseller for you, and it's really amazing how it's caught on, and it's all around the TikTok sphere, and
Yeah, and
yeah,
the funny thing is, at first, I think part of the reason it didn't catch on at first was because it was so different from what people liked about my fragrances, which is
yeah, right,
not fruity florals, not summer fun stuff. But the other, the interesting thing about it, which I didn't know at the time, was that it is unique as a summer freshie that's based around deer musk and vetiver and a lot of tobacco notes and things that you don't normally associate with fun, fruity, floral, uh, summer fragrances. Um, so once again, my ignorance was an asset, I guess, because I stumbled across something original.
well, it's funny how it works that way. I think that that happens often where it's when you least expect it, where you least expect it, and I'm just happy that it turned out to be such a success for you. It's incredible how many references to it that come up. And, I've been very happy, just observing this
Yeah,
happen.
I mean, it's been a
Um,
crazy experience being at the
yeah,
center of that because I
yeah.
and for good and bad, but mostly for good. But this last summer was a little frustrating because I was struggling with the new version. I had to replace 18% of the formula, which was a commercial base, which had gone disappeared, and
Oh,
I didn't know
man.
what was in it, and so it was a little stressful for a while, and also it's hard when you're trying to follow on such a successful fragrance that people
Right.
are just so rabid about, and a lot of people are going to buy blind thinking it's great. Like it has to be great, and at the same time, it has to be what the people who've already smelled it are going to want. Um, so it was a little touch and go there. This has been actually a really rough year in that respect in terms of
Mm,
continuity, because I've had to scale up so much recently,
right, right.
and
There seems to have been a lot of challenges recently, with the discontinuation of different bases. I've heard from a couple of other perfumers that some bases that have been production for decades
yeah.
being
And the surprising
discontinued.
thing, the surprising thing is too is actual aroma chemicals. You wouldn't, you think once a chemical is out there and it's an odor, it's a component of a fragrance, it's something that is its own unique thing, and then all of a sudden, like it goes away. Like it's not just because of regulatory stuff. I can think of probably five in recent memory that have just the manufacturers decide it wasn't profitable. Um,
Hmm.
they're probably still patented, so that, you can't. I don't know. It's just it's. yeah, one of the frustrations.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then there's the challenge of formulating a replacement for something. So you have something that was a big part of Pool Boy, which was this proprietary base. So you had to face the challenge of filling that void with something that was as similar to it as possible. How difficult was that?
Um, it was pretty difficult. I mean, a lot of it was simply the amount of time that it takes to really evaluate something in a fragrance, and especially while the fragrance is aging. And as I had at one point, almost all of the batch produced, but I, was waiting on this missing piece. And yeah, when you add it and it hasn't aged, it's very difficult to evaluate it sometimes and know exactly what what the issue is, what needs changing. Is it just age, or is it? Um, so yeah, there's been a few batches this year that of actually silver, my second most popular fragrance probably.
Mm-hmm. And one of my
The new
favorites.
batch of that, I thought it was going to be easy. And it turned out that when I replaced one of the original natural materials with a higher quality, more expensive one, it did not perform the same. It took me a long time to figure out, like, it's the most counterintuitive thing. You think,
Right, because you think that you'd be leveling up, but
yeah,
it
it's more
just can be
expensive. It smells
behave
better.
differently. Wow.
But yeah, complex fragrances are very, unpredictable and difficult to, when you start messing with them, they start to sometimes unravel.
Right, because you can take a look at one material versus another, and it could be like a different chemo type, and sometimes that isn't even as transparent as you would like it to be. It could be like, say for example, a type of lavender that was grown in a different terroir, if you will, and it just the
Yeah.
way that it behaves in the composition is just different enough that it's almost like it is like a noticeable change. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like one of the materials that I'm realizing is probably most the best example of that is angelica root. I've only
Yeah.
smelled two of them that are the same. Still.
Isn't that fascinating? There's this beautiful Angelica root, and the one that had me fall in love with Angelica root oil, it was sold by this company called Floracopia.
Oh yeah.
And that I had never found an Angelica root oil that smells as breathtaking as the one that I smelled there. I mean, I've loved most of the other Angelica oils that I've smelled, but that's an interesting one. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I wonder if it has to do with I mean, I'm just sort of theorizing here, the amount of what do you call it? What is the type? Exaltolide, I guess, would be the musk that's in
Yeah, yeah.
Angelica root oil.
Mhm.
The of the volume of it, or it. Yeah, that's a very interesting one. That's one of my favorite
I think
accords in perfume too.
yeah, I think also because it's a root, it's very much affected
Right,
by the earth that it grows in, just like
right.
vetiver.
Kind of like vetiver, yeah. And
Um,
vetiver can be so different depending upon
I love that.
where it's grown, whether it's Haiti or it is in Madagascar or India.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true.
Sri Lanka. There's
Sri
ones from
Lanka, yeah.
Uruguay now. I've got one. I think.
Oh, cool. And then the differences. Now you're gonna get me on a tangent about how cool vetiver
Once
is.
you
Like
start out about materials.
the absolute is so much different. Like it's that it's vetiver, but it's like really thick and nutty and almost sweet versus like the oils.
I mean, there's
Really cool.
Rokus, which is the green, North Indian oil. It's
Yeah,
insanely
that
grassy and bright green.
right, really grassy for sure. I actually have some of that from Floricopia. I had a thing with Floricopia for a
I
while. Very
don't think
good
I've ever.
quality stuff, at least at the time when I was purchasing stuff from them.
Hmm.
Um, and the price reflected that, but very cool. Well, they also they were in the market of selling these oils and botanicals for aromatherapeutic use as well, so there's a
Yeah.
certain quality, a certain standard.
I
We
never. Yeah, I never ordered for them. Probably. because the price was a little high for me at the time. But it
Yeah,
was,
yeah. This is, I mean, we're talking back in 2015, 2016 that
yeah.
I was purchasing from them when I was relatively new to purchasing natural materials. Jean-Qui sent my dear Michi, hello to you, scent of the day, Fianagi, very lovely. Great for this time of year in New England. Serge Luton, it's Fianagi. So we were on a tangent with vetiver and angelica root, and then if we retrace our steps, we were talking about the inconsistencies of natural materials,
And Pull
um,
Boy
and,
before that.
and then we can trace it all the way back to Pull Boy, exactly. Um, what are some others that have you found have been really successful over the past couple of years that have gotten attention? From your line. I just want to see if they, because compared to my favorites of yours.
Uh, let's see. I mean, Haunted actually was a pretty successful release, which I wasn't expecting. And Chiron was kind of the opposite. I was expecting it to be more, you know, it to be bigger because it's probably more of a mainstream fragrance, a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and then Haunted is kind of held steady, mostly, as a fall fragrance. Um, Orpheus kind of comes and goes. Sometimes it's very popular, sometimes not. Orpheus and Wendover seem to be doing a weird dance where uh, when one's popular, the other one is quiet, and then it'll
You mean to
reverse
tell
itself.
me your Wendover is still in production?
Oh
You
yeah,
you added it to like the quote unquote permanent
yeah.
line? And you
Although
know
this
how much I
time,
love that one.
what?
That's the one that I went full bottle for.
Yeah,
Beautiful, beautiful stuff.
thank you. Yeah, the
Yeah.
irony though is that as soon as I did that, of course, I discovered that one of the aroma chemicals in it became really, really hard to get.
Oh
Um,
God.
and it's still questionable if I can get more. I still have enough for one more batch, but we'll see.
You're gonna have to tell me what that one is backstage. I know you probably don't want to reveal it on here, but
I'll tell everyone now. It's
oh,
Terranol.
Terran. Oh yeah, well that makes yeah, Terranol. Okay. That that
Which
that doesn't surprise me at all that you use Terranol in that.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's earthy, mossy. It kind of bridges oak moss and petrichor, I guess. Um,
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're true. Yeah, that is true. You're right. It's kind of like isn't so there was Terranol and there was also Terrasol. I remember
Terrasol,
Terrasol.
yeah. Terrasol is
Terrasol,
very different. Terrasol is
yeah,
much more petrichor.
yeah, that has much more petrichor in it. It's sort of like a dilution of petrichor with some other, yeah. But Terranol, I remember it being sort of like the feeling of patchouli without it being patchouli. Like it's
Yeah,
just like this, yeah,
that earthiness, the kind of dryness.
yeah, indeed. Very
Anyway,
nice.
there's a bunch in Wendover, so now everyone knows the secret. But
The secret to Wendover
the
is
the
Terranol.
the funny thing about that though is I searched for it so much that I looked for it on Vigon's website enough that I think they must have been monitoring the traffic and then they added it. Um, and I was desperate; I couldn't get it anywhere else. So, assuming they'll sell to me at my new location, I should be able
Mm.
to get a kilo of it.
And this is why we need to have more ambitious and creative perfumers to keep these these different aroma chemicals and bases in production
Yeah,
so
and
that they're
honestly,
actually used. Yeah.
that's the reason I don't mind, sharing that I love it because it's, yeah, if people start looking for it and asking for it, then maybe it'll become more available.
Yeah. So your only retailer is our friends at Still.
Well, the
Um,
only brick and mortar.
brick and
I'm
mortar
also through
retailer. Okay, but
American
you do
Perfumer.
have like website retailers, but you're
Yeah,
only brick and mortar. Okay.
but
Great.
also with American Perfumer, I do all the fulfillment, so there's no, they're just a website basically selling my stuff. And
Right. That's a place to go to purchase your stuff, but it's like a sort of like a direct route to you, sort of like a
yeah,
pipeline, so that people can find you. Yeah. But that's great though, for folks at least in New York City, they can stop by one of their shops and
yeah. I told you I was so excited when I saw that you did the episode one with Jake and Matt because
yeah, that was
uh,
the first episode. Yeah.
yeah, I just love Stella. It's funny because they contacted me. Jake contacted me about a year and a half ago, maybe a little over. And I just generally just say no to any retail opportunities. But I looked at their location and I was like, wow, that's a pretty hip neighborhood for New York. It's also in New York, so it's gonna. So I think I chatted a little bit with him, and then we made arrangements for me to go there and visit. And it was funny listening to to them on. I hadn't realized that I was undergoing testing at the time, see if I passed the authenticity test. Although I'm not, maybe that wasn't an issue because they've been following me on social media. Um, but I met Jake, and he spent probably almost an hour showing my girlfriend and I fragrances in the shop, and and I got to see their salesperson interacting with people, and I was just so impressed by the fact that they're not pretentious and they're not selling stuff.
Right.
There's no hard sell. There's no, you need to, walk out of here with a bottle or we're wasting our time with you. It's just very, walk in. Maybe you'll find something you really like. And Jake actually at the time, I think I understand a little bit more having listened to the interview, but he was pretty much early on in his fragrance journey. And when he smelled ashes and started carrying it, he was just really. He told me at one point that it was the fragrance that he had everyone who came into the shop smell because it was, he thought such a good example of creative perfumery. It smells like
And
earth,
I'm
but it's
inclined to
also
agree. Yeah.
gardenia. But it just kind of, I think, for him opened up, his mind a little bit in terms of what's possible. And I got to smell some brands that I heard about and was interested in, including Joram. And if I remember right, the one that really impressed me was Perfumer H. She had a,
Runny Lynn Harris's Perfumer H.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was really like, I'd never smelled any of her work before. Like, I'd never smelled any of that stuff by anyone I smelled it before.
Mm,
But yeah, I just thought she had a not just an interesting approach and creative approach, but also really skillful in terms of balance. And I think a lot of people who are trying to be edgy kind of forget a little bit that things have to be wearable and
right.
like likable, have some aesthetic quality.
Right, right. Some aesthetic quality, or there's something to be said about leaning into nuance in perfume, and nuance is so important in
Yeah. Oh yeah.
perfume. Allowing there to be spaces in between, the olfactory phrases, if you will, and I take issue often with budding independent perfumers, whether they're self-taught or I don't know how, many of them, most of them are, um, who have a difficult time with that.
Yeah.
They get it.
It takes time. It really
It
does to
takes a lot of
develop your
time.
nose for
Yeah.
one thing. It took me at least 3 years of attempting fragrances to really get to the point where I could smell accurately, I think, and understood how to do it.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah, totally. The first few years, I mean, it's so amazing because, like, when I was teaching myself all of the ropes for a number of years, I kept on saying to myself, like, I am still learning. I'm not going to jump right ahead and try to, develop a line until I really have developed my ability, beforehand. And it's remarkable how many people are so ready and so eager, and it's often only a year or so after
oh,
they,
not even that.
first.
I see brands on Instagram and TikTok where people are unpacking orders from Perfumer's Apprentice and being like, Beta Iodone. I just got Beta Iodone. It smells well, and it's like the first time they're smelling it, and they're already a brand. And I'm like,
They're
it's
already a brand and they hadn't smelled beta iodine. I felt like
all
I
right.
fe- felt like when I was learning, that was like one of like the essentials that you learn
Yeah,
before you start building a brand.
but
Yeah,
I think
that's
what's happened now is people are basically starting brands before and thinking, oh, I'm going to be a great perfumer without doing any of the work first, and then they start doing the
yeah.
work, hopefully.
But
Um,
the thing with that is that it often ends up showing in the product as
always,
well.
yeah.
That you can tell that there's still a work in progress. There might be a final product, but the final product smells like somebody who is learning.
Yeah, I
you
mean that's a
know?
great thing about perfumery too, especially from my perspective now, having done it for 15 years, is that I mean, some people learn faster than others,
Right.
and you can take classes, which I didn't. But at the end of the day, it's really difficult to make a good original fragrance, especially an excellent original fragrance. Is you know maybe I'm telling on myself, but I find it really almost impossible most of the time. And most of my attempts fail. It's honestly still.
It's an act of patience, of faith, and a lot of self-discipline. Um, I really admire those who stick to it and have that self-awareness as well, which is important, and understanding where somebody went wrong, who's open to criticism, who understands that the successes can only come with a number of failures until you reach a certain level of success. Um,
I mean,
what
still, honestly.
exactly? Well, yeah, it's always gonna that's always gonna happen. Even people who are trained in grass,
Mhm.
what
I think
have you,
that's also an advantage I have, is that I've always been extremely picky about smell, and I've always, I just, most things I think that would work for other people don't work for me. I don't mean like that as a, my standards are so high, but like most fragrances don't work for me. I mean, I come from a really weird perspective in that respect, and I have a really particular set of aesthetic criteria or something that you know I they most stuff just doesn't work, and there's probably entire genres and materials. There's common materials that I've never even used in a fragrance because I just don't like that type of fragrance. For
right?
different reasons.
Would you be willing to share, or would you like that to remain a mystery?
No, I mean, like, so a really common, well, some really commonly used ones in commercial fragrance are anisic notes, and I
Huh?
almost never use them. And anisaldehyde, I've never used in any of my fragrances. Anisal alcohol, never. Anisal acetate, never. Um, uh, yeah, it's just they create this kind of sweetness, heaviness that just doesn't it doesn't work for me. And there's also some that I just hate, like aldehyde C12 M&A. Um,
You're not doing too many of those
smells like floor cleaner.
incenses.
Or and actually, I've smelled Harry Sherwood sent me a sample of his incense base, which actually I could tell had it in it, and it's really well done. I was like, wow, how do you pull that off? There's also tangerinol, which people say smells fresh and citrusy, and to me it smells like a wet dog. And any fragrance within it. I did smell it in one fragrance recently, which was well done by an Indian perfumer. But it's just not, something that works with me. It's
That
quite
kind
sweet.
of reminds me, of speaking of tangerine, isn't tangerine a cross between like orange and mandarin or something?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
something like so mandarin, I like I like eating mandarins. I like smelling them to a degree, but if it's not balanced well in a composition, and I'm talking about whether it's like the people are actually less likely to use the oil because it's so volatile, but
You're probably talking about the same thing I am then.
the aldehydes and
The
it
mandarin
smells
thing
kind of
or tangerine.
like a dead rat.
I think you're probably talking about the same aroma
Or a
chemical
dead
that's
mouse.
being used
Not
in
that
those.
I've been around too many dead rats, but I'm thinking more like a dead mouse. Like there's something kind of like sickly sweet. It's like the sickly sweet smell of
uh,
decay
yeah, the opposite
if
of
it's
fresh.
not balanced correctly. Now I'm ruining everybody's, experience with a Mandarin and Corden fragrance. They're going to be looking for it or trying to sniff it out, and like they won't be able to unsmell
Well, that actually reminds me of something you're talking to with Jake and Matt, which was the how people tend to fixate on notes, and
Right,
so they'll say, "Oh, well, I can't possibly wear anything with a citrus note. That just doesn't work on my skin." And little
right.
they realize, like, there is no citrus note, and there's no actual citrus in most fragrances, most commercial fragrances. It's
Yeah.
aroma chemicals, and so like if you're comparing that, something like that to a fragrance that, someone like me has made where we use, essential oils, it's going to be a completely different experience. It's going to react completely differently on your skin. Um, and not, not guaranteed. I mean, I use like dihydromercenol also, but sparingly. And there's just a lot of ways of doing notes. Some of them are good, some of them are bad.
And that's one that, it really depends on the dosage too, because there's some pretty
Hugely. All of
incredible
them.
fragrances that have dihydromercenol buried within the
Yeah.
formula that you would never expect it to be there, but it does something.
Yeah, I've used it.
It adds a color that would otherwise not be there. Um, it doesn't necessarily, it isn't necessarily always like dosed the way that it would have been dosed in, I don't know, or like what was the one that like Cool Water had a ton of
Yeah, Cool Water,
dihydromercenol or
Draco
Dracar
Noir.
Noir.
Yep.
Um,
A lot. I
but
mean, it's
yeah,
in everything that's commercial. It's male oriented, basically. Or,
I mean, anything that is going to have a lime note is needs it because once again, lime oils are extremely volatile, very tough to work with, and often don't really smell the way that one expects a lime note to smell. So,
Yeah, at least the distilled ones. And the other issue is that the expressed lime oil is now as heavily restricted as Lang. It's you can only use 0.7 or 0.8% in the finished fragrance. So it's not something that you can even use anymore.
right,
The
right.
the authentic stuff, the express, the distilled is chemically altered by the distillation process in a way that makes it smell
Like
completely
lime
different.
lifesavers. Like
Yeah,
to me.
exactly. It turns into this weird
It's
like
like
candy, and
right,
I
right.
don't know. It's
I'm gonna move turn our direction over to the chat just to check in
yeah.
here.
We're all over
Because
the
I
place.
no, it's good. I visited the Clandestine Laboratories website for the first time yesterday, and Haunted was one of the works that interested me the most.
Try it.
And then we have Kevin McDonald. My scent of the day was Estelle Discovery. Excellent curation. Yeah, let's talk about that for a bit. That their business model, as we were talking about, is just
Yeah, I just love those guys.
really well done. The aesthetic is unlike any other store. I mean, some of the stores just, God bless them, but oh my God, the aesthetic. No, thank you. Like I just, some of the yeah, I know a lot about the store, a lot about the stores across the whole continent. Some great people, some do a great job at that. Others, it's just, it's not their strong suit, but there's some creative people behind, and it's mostly Jake and his partner, I think, that they're just like, I have a
Was
vision
I
for
was
it. So
I was actually fascinated to hear that they'd started the store and were using fragrances as accessories for their. So I mean, that probably was like a great way to start in terms of like getting the aesthetic of the store right, and then they added the product later.
yeah, I think Matt seems to, from what I recall, and if my memory serves me, he does have like a good knack for the visual aesthetics, but just overall, just that's the first thing that struck me before I even knew about what they were carrying at their stores. I didn't know how wonderfully curated their stuff was at first. I was just so struck by their online marketing. It was just so stark and visually alluring
Oh yeah,
and just beautiful, beautiful imagery.
yeah. They did a
Unlike
great.
anything else that a fragrance shop or perfume shop has done, and that's what really reeled me in hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, they did a great little reel for me on Instagram. I think shortly after they started carrying me, it was better than anything I've ever done. I mean, it's like arty images. There's noise. There's music, sound, and um, it's just very well done. And
Yeah,
um,
ticks all the boxes. And I love how fastidious, because I can say that, in a good way. I'm fastidious myself about curating. How well curated, as Kevin said, the brands and the houses that they carry. They're not just signing up anyone to be
yeah,
sold at their store. They want
and
something to fall in line with what their expectations are, and their expectation, they have high standards for that. And I think that that's great too, that, that takes some risk because of course, business is business and a lot of stores, they want to make money, right? So they're going to carry the things that definitely people are going to walk in and they're going to buy right away. So
Yeah.
I really admire that. That's a courageous act when running a business, but
And the
I,
fact that,
I think
they
it's
had the
paying
where,
off actually.
yeah, and the fact that they had the wherewithal coming at this from a non-fragrance background to figure out like, there's some brands that are real and there's some brands that are just like, I can't remember how they put it, but that are just in it for the money, basically. And
Yeah.
to have the wherewithal to start questioning perfumers who are, like, well, so how did you make this? And like I said, I didn't realize I was probably being tested when I went in there and met with Jake, but it's probably pretty obvious that I was super nerding out about my references that I had actually made them.
Yeah, great stuff. Great guys. That was a great conversation that we had. For those of you who aren't aware, that was the first episode of this series. We did that back in October, so check that out after watching this if you're watching it live, or do a binge watch, or do a super binge watch and watch all the Fluvium episodes as well if you'd like. um,
So
yes,
actually,
go ahead.
one thing I wanted to talk about was just kind of give an update on what's happened in the last 3 years since the last time I was on. Um, Obviously, become better known for the fragrance community. But the big news is I was finally able to quit my job almost exactly a year ago at Thanksgiving.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
I had been
Okay.
working almost full time, and last year was just totally insane. Like I was actually making more in revenue than I was at my job. A full time job where I'd been for almost 30 years, and I was doing both. So I had to come home from work and just start filling orders and get up in the morning and start frantically packing orders. And I'd cram them in my bags and schlep off to the train and go to work and mail them on my lunch break at work and then come home and start doing it again. It got ridiculous, especially with Pool Boy. Last August was just insane. I had 100 bottles. They sold out in 28 minutes. No, sorry. Sorry, that was this last one. Um, sorry.
Well, whenever that happened, that's
There's
pretty
been
damn
three there's
incredible.
been three crazy
That's
releases
awesome.
of Pool Boy, and one of them,
Yeah.
the first one I think was a day for all the bottles, and then the second
Wow.
one was literally 45 seconds. I had 100 bottles just vanish, and I was getting messages all the rest of the day from people who were mad at me because they thought I'd just hoaxed everyone and I didn't have anything for sale actually. Um,
Because
and then
they got there a minute late.
I mean, I think people assumed 100 bottles like that's not going to sell out in 30 seconds, but that's basically what happened. And then this last one, I'd made a bigger batch, and it was 230 bottles sold out in 28 minutes.
Are
Um,
you kidding me? That is amazing, Mark.
there's now
Wow.
19. There's now 1,900 people on the wait list.
That
Wait
is
list.
phenomenal.
It's insane. It's like
That's a
it's just
runaway hit on
yeah.
your
It took on a
hands.
life of its
Wow.
own. It's great because it's as annoyed as I was starting to get about people on TikTok just being like, "Hey man, when Full Boy coming back into stock?" And I was like, "Can you subscribe to my newsletter, please?"
That'll
um,
make it easier, right? We'll
as
know
annoying as
soon
that,
enough.
constant fixation on that was, and just desperation of all these, young people on TikTok. Um, I say as an old curmudgeon. Um, it's been great because so many people have discovered that I don't just make one good fragrance.
Yeah.
I tend to send out samples with releases. Although last time I did Pull Boy, I just didn't have the time or bandwidth to do that. Um, but I've had a lot of people discover, from where, buying a bottle of Pull Boy blind off and then come back and sampled more and then, become regular customers. So
Hmm.
that's a wonderful thing.
If you're noticing that this is a Fluvium cast and not me, I'm actually logged in under my other YouTube channel. So that's actually me, a Fluvium cast. It's just sort of a placeholder YouTube channel there in case of an emergency. So that's not some rando who's telling people to hit the like. That's actually me.
Actually, wasn't even reading the comments.
So why don't we get into the topic of you were mentioning this, and I've kind of, touched on this topic in past live streams, but I just can't believe it is still going on. People are still talking about this whole maceration crap.
Yes.
Like, why is this still a thing? Like, what is going on here?
And in both directions. I mean, I see people saying that maceration is not real at all, and I'm like, actually, I macerate all my fragrances, and it makes a huge difference. But then there's other people saying, that you need to, spray the fragrance and get some air into the bottle and let it sit for a week, and then it'll, magically improve. And I'm like, first off, that wouldn't be maceration; that'd be oxidation. Um,
Right.
but also, like from personal experience, I've had people say this about my fragrances. Like, I send out samples, which I fill by hand out of bottles that are always partly full. I mean, it's rare that I have a master bottle that I'm filling samples out of that's has no airspace in it. And often they've been sitting half full for months, and then I, fill these samples all the way to the, top, and people get them, and they think that it's like, some brand new thing that they have to macerate by getting air into it. And my take on it, which I think, everyone I've told this to has pretty much seen the light, which is that, when you try a new fragrance, it's like hearing a song for the first time. Even if you see your favorite band live and they play a song, that you've never heard before, it's really often really hard to appreciate it. And it can often come off as chaotic, and it just doesn't really, cohere for you. And fragrance is the same thing, especially if you're smelling an original fragrance, which doesn't smell like something else. Your brain just doesn't have a reference for it. And so it's not the fragrance is changing, it's your experience of it. And,
Right.
that
Right.
type of, understanding of the subjective nature of smell, I think is, it's confusing. I smell is such a, crazy sense.
It's a crazy sense, and this speaks to the nature of processing smell as well, because our brain has used smell. We have evolved to rely on smell as a sense for survival.
Yeah, and
So the primitive brain is looking for information that is going to be useful in finding food and in avoiding threats or danger.
I also say
And
that
one,
bec-
yeah. Oh,
because
go
of the
ahead. No, no,
evolutionary
no.
process, there's a language of smell which is innate, I would say.
Yeah.
For instance, rose. What's rose smell like? It's 200 chemicals, but it smells like rose.
Right, right.
And there could be different roses, but they all smell like rose.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, 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 no. It's okay. No, that's relevant to this. Because also you're going to, if you keep on smelling a rose for long enough, your brain is going to start to notice certain things that it hadn't noticed before, and other things get canceled out.
Yeah, or if you
Bec-
compare
be-
one to another, one rose to another in particular.
there's going to be different. Oh, there's so many different rose smells. We could get into that too. But the way that it works, and I think this is what happens with people when they are getting acquainted with a particular fragrance or wearing it throughout the day, is that the brain is deciding what information is important to be processing and what isn't anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
So it starts to become sort of neutral to certain things. And that's where people think, oh, I can't smell it anymore. Well, it isn't a matter of the smell no longer
It's
existing,
yeah, it's your brain.
but it's the brain deciding that that information is no longer important to
And
be paying attention to.
yeah, the same thing happens with background noise, but the difference with smell is that smells actually do disappear for the brain. You know what I mean? You can't, once you become, if you're in say you walk into a room where someone's wearing a fragrance, the first thing you smell is going to be the fragrance. But after you've been sitting in the room for half an hour, if you try to smell the fragrance in the room, you won't be able to. And that's a distinction between, background noise where your brain normally filters out, but if you tune in, you can still hear it. Um,
Right, right.
so I
Yeah,
think people
yeah.
have a really hard time understanding that that's, a phenomenon of the brain, and it's real, but it's not the fragrance. hits your brain.
And there's even like materials, as you know, like things like alpha ionone, where that is more likely to happen faster.
Hmm.
But then what's interesting about a material like that is it will come back. Like some of them do come back, and then you're like, where did that come from? I thought it was
Hmm.
gone, which is
Yeah,
really fascinating too.
it's a very strange thing. Like for instance, when I wear film noir, I've been wearing versions of film noir since I first made it in 2013, I think. Um, it's one of my regular, just dumb reach fragrances for me. And I can't. It's people say it's like strong and heavy sometimes. When they first try it, and it's overwhelming for them. It's like, and I honestly, it's so light to me, and I often can't smell it for after the first few minutes of wearing it. Except I'll wake up the next morning and it'll be the first thing I smell, and then it'll go away again. It's like I don't know, it's magical. But yeah, it's just smell is smell is smell.
A lot of musks do that.
Mhm.
A lot of musks end up doing that, where,
Yeah, musts are a really special case because they're some people are genuinely anosmic, but they're also very difficult to smell in the way that people normally smell things, which is like up
yeah,
close and concentration. And what I found is that like if you really want to, pro tip, if you really want to understand what a white musk smells like, just soak a paper towel in it, stick it in your bathroom or closet or something, and go away for half an hour, and then come back into the room, and you'll be hit by this musky presence, and you'll also
yeah.
get the character of the musk in a way that you can't get it from smelling it at close range. Even it's a they're very strange molecules.
Yeah, yeah, these strange large molecules that you just can't really get get an understanding by, just smelling the material out of a vial.
Hmm.
Um, and there are some natural materials like that too, like even, sandalwood. Sandalwood eludes people when they're smelling the oil, but then you could do that same sort of experiment and then, the whole space will have that aroma of
Hmm.
sandalwood. Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, yeah. There's also the difference between impact and diffusion. Diffusive things are often very hard you know to smell accurately unless you're smelling a diffusion, which is not the same as smelling it up close.
Right, right. Exactly, exactly.
Like jasmine's one of them. Like it's so diffusive that it's almost impossible to get any sense of like how strong it is or how powerful it is without removing yourself from a room and then coming back where there's a atmosphere that's charged with it.
Mm, mm. And don't you think there are maybe some high impact materials that go against that rule, that they've been formulated in such a way that they somehow are so adherent
I think
to, the your olfactory bulb that it's like you can't get away from it?
I mean, I think that is taking advantage of, evolutionary physiology, basically. There's certain types of odors which you always need to be able to smell. Like food, for instance, is not something that you're going to become anosmic to. Um, and the same thing with animalic smells. It's the reason why, animalic smells are used as fixatives in perfumery and why why they're so valuable is that they create a presence and a bloom
Right.
that's, because of the way the brain perceives those types of molecules. Um, but I'd say, like, in terms of what you're referring to with the engineering, that would be woody ambers, of course,
Yeah. The
which
only
are
other things I can
chemically
think
related
of,
to musks.
they are related to musk, but the only other thing I can relate them to that just have that, permeating effect is like mercaptans, like the same mercaptans that would be put into like natural gas, where it's like you will smell it, you will continue to smell it, you won't, it's hard to get away from it. It's very easy to,
Hmm.
even in very small amounts. I remember one of the most horrifying materials is, would you pronounce it Rebes? R-I-B-E-S?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mercaptan. Oh.
I've
Oh
actually used
God.
that. That's actually in one of my fragrances, believe it or not.
I bet. And no, but it's, I mean, it obviously it's useful. So in heavy dilution, it has like a remarkable effect. But oh God,
That's
early on in my in my exploration, that was like it was pretty traumatic for me. It was like,
yeah, mercaptans in general are.
oh
I mean,
God.
I think what you're talking about with mercaptans and woody ambers is that the common thread is that they're both very high impact and diffusive.
Right. Right.
So it's hard, they're kind of inescapable basically if you're around them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's anyway. Sense of odor is fascinating to me. It's just
I love our circuitous conversations. I hope people are enjoying it. I'm
I
thoroughly
know.
enjoying it.
I,
Um,
I
but I
can't stay
guess
on topic no matter what.
no, no, I have that habit too. I just love to meander. But circling back to, the maceration fallacy, what can be done to correct that? Or is that something that can even be corrected? Do you think that people are almost sort of dogmatic about it, like they just are convinced that that is just the ritual for a fragrance, is that you must let it breathe and add it,
I I think these
like,
I think these things go in waves. I mean, it's a lot of it is just when you first start out learning about a topic, you're ignorant you know by definition, and when you're ignorant, you are prone to come up with explanations that make sense to you in terms of your previous experiences, and I mean, it's a logical assumption that if your perception of a fragrance changes radically from the first time you spray it to a week later when you spray it the second time, well, something's happened to the fragrance in the bottle, and that's you're smelling something because you're smelling something different. Um, I think it's kind of reminds me of the you remember on Facebook in like 2010 when everyone was posting the legal disclaimers on their profiles that this profile, all the content here is my intellectual property, and
I
Facebook
remember
can't
that.
steal it, and so on. I have many thoughts about that, but it was basically people not understand, not having read the user agreement for one thing, but
Right. I mean, once you have agreed to anything meta, it's you're foregoing that. Like
also
it's
if you read the agreement and you have a background in programming like I do, you realize that what they were doing at the time, and this has been I saw it, and it's been proven true in retrospect, was they were developing facial recognition algorithms, which they were selling to other companies. And so the user agreement gave you them permission to use your content to generate products. Anyway, big tangent there. Sorry.
No, that's a wild tangent though. I mean, even those things like, when you log into a website and it asks you to identify such, you have like a series of images. Which one of these flies? And you have to choose the birds versus some other object that does not fly. That's AI, that it's data mining. It's data mining so that they're collecting this information to better understand how humans make these decisions. Like that
I, I
we
I I think in that case, actually, they're trying to determine that you're human because those are the kind of things that computer learning, machine learning have a difficult time with
yeah, yeah, but
because they
it's
don't
sort of has
resemble each
serves
other visually.
a double purpose because they're also like
Possibly.
figuring out a way, what is going to stump a human being.
Maybe.
You
Maybe.
know, because there's occasionally those where it's like, how many more times do I have to do this? I'm gonna have to log in another
Well,
way.
it
I
means you're not. It
can't.
just means you're not convincing it that you're human. You're human.
Yeah.
There you go.
So yeah, maceration, maturation. Yeah, I've had to explain to people that that doesn't really make good business sense either. It's like once there's a product on the shelf, it's ready to use. It's that nobody would, unless I guess we're talking about like, wine or
Yeah.
whiskey or something, but even so, it's not the same
No.
thing.
I mean,
Perfume is meant to be worn.
also, these commercial brands are selling stuff to retailers that have sample bottles that you can spray, and you don't want people like, oh, let me come back in a week and see if it smells better now. Like, no, it has to be good to go.
No.
Um, so yeah, I mean, but the other thing is, it is, then there's at the other end of the spectrum, there's people saying that it's not a real thing at all. And I'm like, if it's not a real thing, then why are all these corporations spending 2 months macerating their fragrances normally?
Yeah,
Like
that's
they don't do that for just kicks, shits and giggles.
right. It is a real thing. It's just happening before the product ends up on the shelf.
Yeah,
They're not
it's. I
relying
mean,
on the consumer to do it for them and hope that it turns out well. And like
yeah, exactly. I
they
I mean,
want whatever it
another.
is that's on the shelf to smell the way, like that it should be, and that it doesn't change unless it ages and is stored poorly. That's about it.
I think. I mean, I think the a good parallel for actual maceration is winemaking.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you first put a wine in the bottle, it's going to be young, and then it changes over time and gets mature, and blah blah. There's chemical reactions that happen in the bottles. There's also maceration in oak and so on, which is a slightly different thing. But um, so I can see why if your experience with maceration is the idea of winemaking, you could see why people would think, okay, well, when I open a bottle of wine, it needs to breathe. And so there's probably an assumption that that applies to perfumery as well. I don't know where it came from, but it's just patently not true. I'm sorry.
Right. Have you noticed any other sort of like weird fallacies about fragrance that's shared online on TikTok, on forums, and
I'm sure I have. I
how
mean,
about all those people who use like Makrit lime for bergamot?
who use what?
So everywhere, when they want to use an image to represent bergamot, they
Oh,
take a Makrit lime
yes.
image because they somehow think if you go to a Google image search, whatever's going to show up there is an accurate depiction of whatever it is they searched for everywhere. I mean, like major like
For Grantica.
designer brands, like it is not limited to people who are just a little ignorant. It's like people who really should know better, and they take these images of Makrit limes, also known as kaffir lime,
Mm-hmm.
because
I love
somewhere
Kefir
along
lime.
the line, I haven't figured out exactly where this happened, but it was just used accidentally, and people ran with it, and people just kept on using it over and over and over again.
I'm going to blame for Grantica because
Maybe for Grantica,
that's
yeah.
that's a pretty easy
But
easy
a
target.
lot of like aromatherapy brands that sell essential oils do the same thing too.
Yeah, maybe.
They just use that. Yeah. Another one that I see is when violet is represented as a note or a chord, they use like an image of an African violet, which is like not only is it not the violet that is a scented, it's not even a true violet botanically.
It looks like it should smell good though.
It looks like it should smell good, but it isn't even like a true botanical violet. So that's really strange. I've seen some pretty big YouTube channels when flashing the ingredients on the screen using African violet to represent a violet accord.
Mhm.
And they
I mean,
continue to do it even after I very kindly and gently corrected them, but they just
now
continue
that I
to
think
do it.
about it,
So
actually,
sometimes you just got to let go and let God.
yeah, yeah, one of the now that have mentioned the images and fragrance notes, one of the obvious misconceptions is the difference between notes and materials. Um,
Right. Oh, right, right, right.
and that's of course that's down to fragrance marketing really, and all these brands talking about they're trying to basically trying to prevent the work trying to present the creative work of perfumers as being natural, expensive, natural, exclusive materials, as opposed to just simply saying, perfumery is an art. Like, you know,
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean, where it's like they put into the forefront the materials that are used,
and they say,
which is
but
all.
also like blue rose.
Oh, you're talking about these weird fan. Oh, the blue.
I mean, they talk about these things as if they're materials, and I don't, sometimes
Blue
they
bro.
are actually talking
Well,
about
I was just
materials.
sharing stories of this on Instagram. Like, well, one story, and then other people were chiming in about the silly stuff they find. Like, I did an Instagram story. I think I did it. Was it yesterday or today? I can't even keep track of time anymore, but it was about it. I said that I get a good chuckle when I read reviews under a fragrance that has a mimosa note in the breakdown, and they're wondering why they don't smell the cocktail. Like
Exactly.
that.
Where's the
And I see
cocktail?
that a lot. There are a lot of things like that. Or they just are convinced that they smell this fantasy flower, like, oh, the amaryllis in this is really the standout note in the fragrance. And it's like,
Yeah.
you can't tell me that you've ever smelled a scented amaryllis.
I
Not
mean,
doubting that it exists somewhere on the planet, but you probably have not smelled it. Yeah. Yeah.
and honest, I mean, not to harsh on my audience, but or the audience for fragrance in general, but I've noticed this tendency of especially people who aspire to be reviewers trying to talk about the raw materials that are in a fragrance or that they smell in a fragrance and getting them completely wrong. And
Yeah.
I mean, this is actually how I contacted Scented Devil, Derek, originally.
Derek, yes. Our
he
friend Derek,
he
he's
does
he's
that, a few times, and
yeah.
one of the things I called him on was he kept saying Civitone as for civet, and oh, this is a really skanky, there's tons of Civitone in here. I'm like, dude, Civitone's a white musk. It doesn't smell like animals at all. Like it
Yeah.
has no relation to civet, except for
Yeah.
it's in civet. But
It's definitely sensuous, but it doesn't smell like civet the way that civet is. Yeah.
no, I don't.
Civetone.
It's totally lacking animal
Hella
odor.
expensive too, God.
Yeah, that's what
Um, and they
I mean.
don't use like just I mean, I know from like civet reconstructions there is a certain element to civitone that makes for a civet accord. Obviously, the
Mhm.
name suggests that, but you just don't get it from civitone. It's
No,
just sort of like
and
a,
you're
it's
never gonna
like,
encounter a fragrance and smell it and go, oh, civitones.
oh, there must be civitone. Yeah, it's certainly not,
I can't
especially
do
with
that.
it being that kind of white musk. Yeah. From what I know with like civet reconstructions, they're using things like indoles and lactose and weird
And
things like that, and you're not
organic
going to be able.
acids, which are always really stinky, generally.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so Pat has a comment here. There was a girl on TikTok using the word agnostic rather than the correct word. And I was like, yeah, there's
Well,
things
that's
like
good.
that. Right.
I guess
Yeah.
I'm gonna start doing that. I like it.
Agnostic. Yeah.
I'm agnostic to certain musks.
Yeah, it's funny stuff. Yeah, you'll see stuff like that. I mean, the TikTok fragrance sphere rather. I mean, it's all different kinds. There's some people who are really sharp and really like know their
Yeah,
stuff. Like they've done their homework, they've researched, and they're able to put together this concise, you know, eye-catching, attention-grabbing sort of TikTok video, and they have everything correct. But you definitely have some people where they're just having fun with it, but it's the thing about it is it's democratizing in social media. So if
it's
somebody isn't doing their own due diligence, they'll just take whatever anybody says is gospel, and then that's what ends up resulting in everybody using like macrit limes for bergamot. Like they just trust other people who share the information and are persistent with it.
TikTok is
So
such. I only joined about a little over a year ago, because of Pull Boy. Basically, people started talking about Pull Boy a lot there, and I had to find out join in and
right, what's going on
and
here?
actually a friend of mine had started a TikTok channel and wanted me to be on live with him, which I have once. Um, and it drove me insane at first. I was so annoyed by all the messages I was getting from people and just like the way that people interacted there and the just desperate, like it's a very strange ecosystem. I don't want to insult too many people here. I've come to like it and I've come to understand it better. But at first, it seemed like it was just like this vomit of like commercialism and people all, just desperate for attention and desperate to be fragrance influencers. Like everyone on, you know, everyone in within eyesight on TikTok was like, I'm going to be a fragrance influencer. That's, and then asking for free stuff and, hey, bro, hey, clandestine team, and endless.
Clandestine team.
Oh, and like I
Like
get so many messages like that. Hey,
like you
clandestine
have a
team,
bunch of Oompa Loompas
we
helping you
really like
out.
your brand and are so impressed by what you're doing. And blah, blah, blah. Like, shut
My favorite is the hey bro. I get those a
up.
lot on Instagram. Hey bro, can you make a decant of that fragrance? Like, and
Hey,
I get
bro,
a
wants
lot of
full.
those messages, like, or people tell me things like they ask me things that could very well be, you could find the answer just by Googling, but they just, I don't know if it's just they like to hear it from somebody that,
I
and
mean,
I'm flattered by it, but it's like I
yeah.
don't have that kind of time to answer these kinds of questions, really. It's
Don't even kids
like,
have Google anymore?
there's so many ways to find information now that's at your fingertips. Like, back in the day
Yeah.
we had, encyclopedias and yellow pages, like
I
it was
actually have a
like,
I have a younger friend who I was mentoring for a while, and I finally just shut him down because he kept texting me with questions like, "What do you think of this, aroma chemical?" I'm like, "Google it." Like, is your Google broken? Like,
right, right.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But it's, it's like there's one side of me that feels really, honored to be considered just, this wealth of information. So I should, count my blessings that, that people actually think I'm relevant enough to ask these questions. But it's like it's hard for me to keep up with it. It's like I'm at that point now with Instagram, being a micro influencer. I'm not an influencer though, but that's what Instagram says is I'm a micro influencer, for whatever reason. It allows me to make, $10 a month from Instagram. But it's hard for me to keep up with some of like the questions and the messages and everything. So it's like I like that Instagram has added like this new in its updated app. There's like a section for just like comments. So if I miss them, I can just scroll down and anything that I haven't already like left a heart for, I can just answer it. And then
oh, nice.
so nobody feels left out. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that relatively new feature on Instagram, because I do like to interact. Like I do like to keep that engagement and to keep it as authentic as possible. To
Yeah,
show appreciation. That people are actually
and
responsive to what I do.
yeah. I mean, I should say that's. I mean, much as I bitch about some of the stuff, it's been one of the most fabulous things about going public and getting some public recognition is just the fact that I get to interact and meet so many people now, and and people are actually interested in like meeting me and like my opinions, and you're just wanting to know when Pool Boy is coming back. Like it's pretty cool. I mean,
The man behind the genius.
you probably remember my my previous job was in a black and white commercial photo lab making work for artists, and I was totally behind the scenes, no public presence, no
Right.
interaction with clients usually, sometimes when they came to the studio actually, but usually it was just me literally in the dark in a room making other people's art.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so to go from that to being a public figure and just having people like excited to like you know hear from me is just fantastic. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
also like I've got rock stars who are groupies or fanboys. It's pretty cool.
Really? So you have some A-listers who have Pool Boy
Yeah,
on their
and
dresser. Yeah.
I'm actually I mean I wouldn't say they're A-listers in terms of like being super famous, but I'm gonna start a fragrance brand with a musician friend who I've become friends with because he discovered he loved Master, and then he loved Pool Film Noir, and then Master, and then
Yeah.
he's and I've become a fan of his work, and I've gone to see his couple of his shows, and he's introduced me to other bands. I've hung out backstage with like Amigo the Devil, and like it's really cool.
That is really cool. That's awesome. Very cool stuff. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I get to hear about bands I would never hear about at my age normally.
Right, right, right.
By the way, I'm 55 for anyone who can't tell.
Gen X. I'm at the I'm at sort of the more the tail end of Gen X. I'm 47. So
Yeah,
are
you're
we
still.
a little generation? Anybody born between 1977 and 1983, I think, were called Zennials
Oh yeah,
because
yeah. Okay.
you know, one of those things, it's all splintered off into all these little like micro generations. You're like smack dab in the middle of Gen X. You're
I'm
you're
I
you're
am
not
full
given that
on Gen
privilege
X.
of having like a little micro generation that in between.
Yeah, born
So
1970.
1970, we're born in the same decade. I was born in 1978.
Yeah,
So
great
yeah,
decade.
us 70s babies, we have a lot that we can relate to, we can bond over for sure. If anybody in the chat wants to ask any questions or share any comments, we have 9 people who are tuned in at the moment. As with most of my live streams now on my YouTube channel, most of it is watched, archived, uh, after the live transmission. But I'd love to hear from a few more people. The last person we heard from is our dear Pat Lester. And we've heard from Kevin McDonald and Junkie Sent Mishi. And I hope Emily is still tuned in, even though she is doing her chores at home. It was lovely to hear from all of you during the chat. So, what are the plans? Do you have sort of like a timeline for future releases? Is there one that's currently in development? And if so, would you be willing to share a few things about it?
I have so many plans, and actually, I didn't quite catch up with the current day news, which is that in April I moved into a studio. I finally have a commercial space and a professional place to work, which is a huge upgrade from this room, which is now a total mess. Um, so I'm still composing fragrances here, and then doing all the work of packing, shipping, mixing, filtering, bottling, and all that, keeping the inventory at my studio. The plans coming up are pretty exciting, actually. There's a fragrance called Sanctuary, which is incense with a citrus and tomato leaf top note. Um, it's gorgeous, I'd say, and people, I don't think people, I don't remember any of my releases that people have been as excited about as Sanctuary. So it should go pretty well. And then after that, Island, which is a fragrance that I composed in 2012. And again, people who've gotten samples recently are nuts for it. So that should be February, maybe early March. And then Pool Boy, I just almost finished mixing a gallon of the new concentrate. So there's going to be a lot of bottles. And for a change, I'm going to notify all the waitlist people instead of releasing it. And then there'll be probably a second round of where I actually announce the release and also notify the waitlist. And then there's Eastern Lands, which is a incense fragrance, to which I added a massive overdose of petitgrain oil, which strangely works. It's like spicy clove with sour petitgrain. Clove and petitgrain are both kind of sour. Um,
That sounds kind of appealing to me. I love the idea of like sour and scent, but the right kind of sour, not
yeah,
sour as
it's
in
not a
sour
there's
milk,
no
but
sweetness. It's
sour.
not gourmand, but it's got this
Right.
sour green quality.
I love the
Um,
sour and the bitter, all that kind
and
of stuff.
spicy. And the funny
Yeah.
thing about Eastern Lands is I hadn't seriously thought about releasing it as a fragrance because it's something I've been basically wearing as a deodorant in sweaty weather for years because the sourness really works with covers the, the, still, the smell of stale sweat. And so I was thinking of it more as a functional, just something where you know, I like to wear it in the summer because it keeps me from smelling bad. But I sent out a few samples to people and they were nuts about it. So that's coming up. Um, there's a few. Oh, there's P2, which is named after, coincidentally, and then I kept the name, named after a secret Masonic lodge in Italy that was the center of all sorts of crazy conspiracies for about 3 decades or 4 decades in Italian politics.
Hmm.
Brought down a couple of governments, and it involves yeah, a secret Masonic lodge, and former fascists and connections to the CIA and the Vatican Bank, and people showing up dead in London, and all sorts of crazy stuff. So that's very on brand as a name.
I love that idea.
Yeah, and that's actually it's a very old fashioned smelling fragrance to me. In
Hmm.
fact, strangely, it smells like a bit like some of Darren Allen's stuff. Um,
Oh, really?
but I
It,
composed it like 7 years before I knew who he was, maybe.
huh.
Um, but it
Well,
just
oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say that brings me to my next question. What are
oh,
some other perfumers that you admire? But before we do that, I just wanted to check into the chat. We have a few more chats here. We have our old friend Manginosis. Great to see you, JJ. Hello, Mark. I will be watching the beginning of the stream tomorrow. It's a little late. Pat Lester. Mark, were you self-taught or did you take a course in perfumery?
very self taught. I was self taught before it was possible to be self taught.
Yeah, because
um,
15 years ago, there weren't as many people,
no, I mean, you
Yeah.
probably remember back then. It was hard to find any of the modern aroma chemicals, or at least consistently. Um, and it was very difficult to find information online about how to go about, or anywhere, books, how to go about actually making perfumes. And I was just, yeah, I started out like, mixing stuff into vodka because I didn't know any better. And, overdosing cinnamon oil because I didn't know any better. And just
Oh, that's delightful on the
bad
skin.
things. causing,
Nice.
causing myself, phototoxicity because I didn't know.
Yeah, chemical burns, the whole nine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I
Bad,
already tell you about the story about my messing around with Masoya bark several years ago?
No, what was
Oh,
that like?
Jesus. So I purchased Masoya bark oil, which does smell gorgeous, but
Oh, it's
Jesus,
beautiful. Yeah.
oh my God, it's just not good to put too much of it on your skin. And I purchased some from Hermitage Oils in the UK. I was purchasing a lot from them at one point. I did like ad copy for them for their products for a
I
while
remember
too.
that. Actually, did they start in the UK and they moved to Italy? Or what?
I think they moved to Italy eventually. They still
Yeah.
use some of my write-ups
I
on their
know. Yeah.
products. They still come up like, I don't know
I
how many
remember
years later.
I'd known you for a little bit, and then I finally made the connection. I was like, wait, you're the guy?
I'm the guy who was doing all the, I was evaluating them and writing different, descriptions for them for a while. And I purchased some Masoya bark oil and not being careful about like the percentage limits. This is before it was just outright banned. It wasn't that much later.
Yeah, no, it was
And
pretty.
yeah, and I overdosed it in this thing that I was experimenting, and I wore it because that's what I like to do, wear it on myself, see how it blooms on my skin, and my whole neck was like
Oh,
beet red, like because there was just too much of the oil. There is a serious irritant in the oil if you use too much of it, and I learned the hard way, and
yeah.
so that I was dealing with that for like 2 or 3 days.
Oh God.
So, but yeah, Masoya bark. Um, I do they even allow Masoya lactone? I don't even think they allow that now.
No, I think that's actually what's the sensitizer.
That's, I think, what probably, turned my skin red and hot and itchy. It was really bad. Um, so I guess nowadays, putting together a Masoya bark accord would be sort of like putting together a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and just,
Yeah.
obviously you could use different lactones, and it has sort of a vaguely kind of coconutty kind of smell.
Yeah, I'd say. I
Um,
mean, actually, I got. Yeah, in terms of the lactones that are similar, I never found one until recently, which is cis jasmine lactone, which
mm,
does have a similar creamy beautiness,
yeah.
floral beauty to it.
I wonder if Jean-Claude Elena used that for Santal Masoya. if that's what he used, that was a secret.
Huh.
Because
I
he composed something for Hermes called Santal Massoya, and it
huh.
does, in fact, remind me of Massoya
I haven't
oil.
smelled that one. I like his work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm a big admirer as well. Um, all these lovely tangents.
I'm good for that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we were talking about, materials,
Mm.
and how it can be risky business. Like when you were early on, you were using too much cinnamon. Yeah, yeah. When
Yeah.
I was messing around, I learned pretty quickly that you have to respect these things, or else they're not going to respect you. Um, but yeah, yeah, definitely there are some things that
Mm.
can really do a number on you if you're not careful. That's why, like, I've noticed people who would, share their experimentations, their compounding and blending experimentations online, and you would see, them doing things that are definitely not standard practice and perfume making and
Yeah. So
yeah, yeah.
I was one of those back in the day. Yeah. So to answer the question, I'm entirely self-taught. I've never taken any classes, and at this point, I guess I don't need to. Maybe I should. I don't know. But and part of my story is that I intentionally kept myself ignorant of existing fragrances, I guess, while also being self-taught. Um, and that's why my stuff is weird and original, I guess.
That's your cachet,
That's my
you
brand.
weren't too heavily influenced by the industry at large and all of the fragrances that were already out there. So in a way, sometimes if you already have like that raw talent and that creativity, it allows you to be a little bit less restrained in your vision because you're not comparing yourself too much. Well, I
Or
want
just
to,
totally uncontrolled. Um,
right.
yeah, I
But
mean,
I
in my case,
admire that,
it's always been a double-edged sword. I mean, I've developed, over time, a better sense of smell, more of a, refined aesthetic sense. But my stuff has always had I guess, kind of a crudeness to it that, I like. And it's just a function of the fact that I'm not referring to things that are, in the French style, really,
Hmm.
immaculately blended and powdery smooth and beautiful.
Yeah, and while I do love that stuff, I cannot be satisfied by that alone. And especially in recent years, I've come to really crave things that are genuinely unique.
Yeah, I
Like,
think I mean, we're seeing that now all over TikTok, especially like with brands like Toscavat and I don't know if I'm
mm-hmm.
saying that right, but like people craving the absolute weirdest, like, blood notes and, you know, rotting flesh accords if they can, or what, like the most, bizarre things. It just seems like there's this, to a certain extent, there's become a little bit of an arms race, I think, in any perfumery to, like, see who can make the most goth, weird,
Yeah.
feeling,
You see a
you
lot of that, but the cream has to rise to the top because so many people can have these concepts and these ideas, but can they really execute them in a way that, like you said earlier in the chat, is eminently wearable? Because if it's not, it's more like
Yeah,
olfactory art. It's
and I think
not
actually
really a perfume.
that's kind of the story of the rise of indie perfumery is that, indie perfumers are really much more concept driven, um, than commercial perfumers. I mean, commercial perfumery is driven by referencing things that have already been successful. And you guys talked about that in the last episode a bit, but indie perfumers are free to do things that are really concept based, and that's led to a rise of. I was actually interviewed for an article in Canada's premier fashion magazine. It's called Fashion, I think. That's what it's called.
Fashion.
It was a horrible article because the author interviewed me for like a full hour and then did some follow ups, and then managed to like misquote me on the one quote she put in completely and said that Wendover was intended to smell like a musty basement
Huh?
because that fit with the theme of her article. And the theme of her article was that there's this, new trend of abject notes that aren't, wouldn't normally be appealing in perfumery. But, I tried to help her put it in perspective, which is that this is happening for a reason. It's because all these creatives are doing perfumery now without, commercial briefs. And so they're referencing all these, a whole spectrum of experience, which was not, formerly acceptable in classical perfumery.
Right.
You might have tragedy, but it would be a romantic tragedy, and it would be done in a really, soft and sweet way, as opposed to like, a car crash. Um, but that seems to have recently, it seems like taken on a life of its own, where like there's this arms race to like, incorporate the weirdest
Yeah.
notes and concepts possible and most unappealing. And
Speaking of car crashes, Toscavat's next release will be Jaws of Life. All right.
really,
No,
I
I'm
didn't
just
know
kidding.
that.
No,
I
I'm
don't know
just,
anything about them. I have no idea.
just joking around.
I just know they're a brand based out of like Hungary or something that, it's kind of
Yeah,
gone.
I admire the ambition and the concepts are I celebrate that pushing the envelope, but there's varying levels of wearability and some are just, outright unpleasant, but others are like impressive in that like they've really nailed, the concept
Hmm.
in a great way. Which I want to circle back to that question. What are some of the brands, houses, and other independent perfumers that you admire? Besides obviously, Darren Allen. Who else out there do you appreciate and admire?
John Beeble, of course.
Yes.
He's
Yeah.
the nicest guy. And, we did a sample swap a couple of years ago, probably after I chatted with him a bit. And yeah, he was just very open and, open to helping me and answering questions. And, I really appreciate that because he was much, at the time, much more established and still is.
Yeah, he's a really good friend of mine and just a true talent and his approach is genuinely unique. That's
Yeah,
unique. Yeah.
it's unique in a way that's different than mine. I would say
Right.
mine's genuinely unique too. For better and worse. But you get to, I get to, experience this, interaction with people who have taken similar journeys, I guess, and come up with totally different results.
hmm And
His
it comes as
style.
no surprise that not only does Still carry your line, but also carries January Scent Project
Oh, well, I'm
from John Beeble. Yeah, he
not
carry it as
surprised.
well.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Who else? Oh, my friend Noah, who's mostly known as a social fragrance influencer on TikTok now. Um, he started. Him and his wife are now have a brand called Polysniferous.
Polysniferous. I think I've heard that name or read it.
They
Not.
do. He's got
Mhm.
a whole line of a whole series of Aventish fragrances, which are based on the structure of Aventus, but his take. And then, yeah, he's basically started out. He's still learning perfumery, and so he's taking a very different route than I did. He's basically modifying existing structures and putting his own unique spin on them. But
Mm, mm.
he's really actually very good. I was just smelling one of his last night that if it was a commercial fragrance and I was smelling it, I'd be just as impressed by how balanced it was and performance and just his sense of balance is amazing. I
Mm.
think he's got a lot of talent. I've been pushing him to do actual, original fragrances. Um, who else? Randomly, there's this guy, Namesake Fragrance, who's not well
Namesake.
known at all. I just encountered him years ago on Instagram, and he kind of had given up promoting himself. I think he's in Seattle. Um, he was doing some pretty creative stuff at the time. He was still, kind of starting out, but I thought he had interesting talent and was just a nice guy, and also great designs. Graphic design for his brand. Um, Carter from Chronicle.
Carter Maddox.
Yeah, Chronicle.
Cronto. Mm-hmm.
His work's interesting. I don't click with all of it, but he's a super nice guy. been, incredibly supportive and friendly, open. Um, and his concepts are interesting, I think. Um, not in the style, not in my style, at all, really. But I appreciate what he's doing. Um, I know there's some other ones. I just can't think right now. Um, oh, my friend Emily. She's unfortunately quit, but
Oh, Emily Shelter in
yeah, Shelter.
Perfume. She
Mm.
was a guest of ours some time ago for Effluvium as
Oh
well.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, she's great. She was more talented than she thought, I think. But I think a lot of creative fields are difficult for women, especially ones with an online component.
Right, right.
um, I like her and my friend Kate from what was her brand called?
Oh, yes, 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 yes. Oh,
Oh shit.
no, I know exactly who you're talking about, and
Yeah, she
she's a
kind of shut down for a
sweetheart.
bit.
And I had like a sample set of her work, and I really enjoyed it. And the name of her of her brand escapes me.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're having this collective anosmia right now. Anyway, uh, oh god, and she's based out of Seattle, also, I think.
hmm.
Um,
Shame on me for forgetting the name.
oh my
I,
god, she me too. But to be fair, she hasn't been active in about a year or
she
so.
hasn't. Yeah, that is true. That is, she
And
hasn't been on the
she,
radar.
she got into it with a few dudes online who, I won't name their names, but
Well, I think
pretty
yeah,
unfortunate.
yeah. There are a few who are out there in the ecosystem who are not really, yeah, I'm trying to bite my tongue here and not, yeah, I don't want to mention any
Yeah.
names, but a little concerning as far as what they're doing with their work and what they're using and whether or not they're, not, I mean, I'm not,
Also, let's talk.
like compliance is an important thing for me, and if people are willfully going against, the guidelines, that can be a bit concerning to me. So,
I mean, I think there's a case to be made for occasionally challenging them from a position of informed
right,
knowledge.
yeah, right,
I
I
think if
agree.
I have a background in chemistry and science, and IFRA is not honestly the best at a lot of things. I've got some issues with, like for instance, they've got one material that's prohibited in fine fragrance, but is a component of and prohibited because of lack of data. But it's present at about 2 to 3% in ambret seed oil, which has been used in fragrance forever and widely used, and is not banned. Even I think probably because they don't even really realize that it's in ambret seed oil. But anyway, I would love to make a fragrance with this material. In fact, I did, and discovered it was banned or prohibited. I may still release it with a big caveat that this contains a material which is.
Not if we're compliant. Warning,
Mhm.
danger.
But I have my reasons for thinking they're full of shit on this one, and
Yeah.
their lack of data is ignorance.
Or whatever
Um,
went from the top down to IFRA were full of shit, and IFRA just had to bow down. It's a weird relationship between the EU and IFRA, and I mean, some people are very pro IFRA, a lot of people are
I'm
anti IFRA, and
I'm generally pro, but
yeah.
yeah, their scientific arm, I think there's a disconnect between was it the research in RIFM, the Research Institute for Fragrance Materials, which is where they get the research from to generate the
Hmm.
standards. And obviously, uh, RIFM is a scientific body, and uh, just from reading the standards and having a background in science, I can tell that their process for creating the standards is not very well informed by you know a good technical understanding in some respects.
Hmm.
Like their use of significant figures is terrible. Anyway, blah blah blah. Um,
It's
But
good to know that it's so robust. We have Justin CCCCC dropping by. Hi, chat. Scent of the day, Rogue Bon Monsieur. That is a creation from Manuel Cross. Rogue Perfumer, is that correct? Or yeah, Rogue Bon
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Monsieur. Yeah. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, that
Amaret
seems like
seed oil. Ooh,
having not smelled his stuff, have a certain amount of respect for him. Fazotic, um,
yes.
seems like he's legit. Um, who else? Anyway, blah, blah.
I was just thinking about Amaret seed oil and how delicious it is. The
It's pretty
oil,
good.
the absolute. God, and such good stuff. So damn expensive.
Yeah, hugely expensive.
Yeah. Have you already used it in any of your compositions?
Yeah,
Hmm.
silver, and
Oh,
trace amount. It's
yeah.
pretty trace
Well,
material.
the thing that at least it's it does have an effect in small amounts, which is thankfully usually the case with things that are very expensive.
That's what I
Um,
found, actually, surprisingly. Yeah,
the only exceptions to that are esoteric floral absolutes, where it's
Baronia.
like
I mean, Baronia actually does have a great effect on small amounts, but it's
it
also
does, yeah.
do the
But I'm
same thing
thinking of
with ion beta.
like way more esoteric ones, like ones that would have like limited production, but somehow still, yeah, at one point or another are
Co-
being produced.
Coffee flower, absolute.
Yeah.
I actually got that recently, and it's mm, not worth the price, I would say.
Then there's things like Aglaya Absolute. And
Yeah,
it just
no.
smells like something that would be in, a Kabbalistic shop of some type, like very like natural perfume, that sort of oddly pollen, yeasty, kind of like sweet, muddy kind of
Mhm.
weirdness where it's
But doesn't
how
perform really that well in the
and
end.
how does this even contribute to anything? Like it almost makes you feel bad that all the Aglaya flowers gave up their life for
Yeah.
this material that yeah, there's a few of them like that I collected or when I'm a very compulsive person. Surprise, surprise. Considering I have 1,200
Me too.
fragrances in my collection, but when I was collecting raw materials I was also compulsive, and I was just like I wanted to have a certain quantity of every single floral absolute that existed. And there is a reason why there's probably about only like 40 floral absolutes that are really used total max. All of the other ones, like Blue Lotus Absolute, it's like so pretty, but so diaphanous, and like how does that it would immediately get swallowed by anything else when I would
That,
mess around,
that's actually one where there's several different qualities of it. The
Oh, there we
lotuses,
go again.
lotuses are all over the place, I find. And yeah,
Yeah.
some of them are a little shy, and some of them are pretty usable, and some of them are just like mud.
That's where I just feel like just create a Lotus Accord. Just use other flowers like and synthetics, other floral absolutes and synthetics. Don't bother. I remember I even had things like oleander absolute and
Oh, absolutely.
safflower absolute. Like these
I
really
like
obscure
I like
ones.
safflower, actually. It's kind of like smells a little bit like a sisal rope or something. Like it's very
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I
And
haven't
then
used anything yet.
even
This
Charna Ethier of Providence Perfume Company, she was able to obtain sunflower essence, and I had some of that.
huh.
And that smelled interesting. It really did smell like sunflowers if you actually magnified the smell of a sunflower, which obviously you can only smell if you bury your nose
Mm.
in the inflorescences. But it smelled pretty good.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how many of these materials are produced at one point or another. Remember elderflower absolute? That smells absolutely nothing like elderflowers.
That's nice stuff, though. That's actually allegedly used in the original formula of Aventus, believe it or not.
Elderflower absolute, really?
Yeah.
I
At
have
least
to
from
learn
what I've
to
seen. I mean,
appreciate.
I can't
I'll
speak
have
for
to
others.
learn how to appreciate elderflower. Absolutely. It's probably one of those materials where it's like it's not intended to be used to create an elderflower accord. It's
No,
used
no.
used
It kind of softens things a little bit.
to
And
impart a different effect altogether. Yeah, yeah. Like carnation, absolute. That's
yeah,
another
that's a
one too.
difficult one to use, I find.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a very almost meaty quality to it. It's very like umami. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, that really.
Like aggressive umami.
Yeah, there's that eccentric house in France. It's the perfumer JAR, and he makes a couple of different carnation fragrances, and one I think is called Golconda, and he uses a ton of the Absolute in it. And I smelled a sample of it, and it is gorgeous. Like there's something like I could tell that the Absolute is in it, but he was able to draw out some of the most interesting qualities of it, but you wouldn't smell it expecting it to be like your classic kind of like carnation fragrance. It's definitely another animal unto
Yeah.
itself. Yeah.
And the weird thing
That's
is, the carnation note in perfumery smells like hand soap to me. It doesn't smell like carnations at all, generally.
really.
At least the bases I've smelled. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on the basis. I love carnation and fragrance. But the thing is like we're so divorced from like scented carnations because people associate carnations with the ones that are sold at like grocery stores that are completely the scent is completely bred out of them. And
mm.
a lot of people are visiting like botanic gardens and like, growing like sweet williams in their cottage garden to really know, what a carnation actually smells like. But I
Also,
absolutely
speaking
love
of,
carnation.
did you know I live about 6 blocks from the New York Botanic Garden?
You do?
And I have a membership, so I can go there all the time and walk around and smell stuff. It's great.
I love
It's
botanic gardens. Do they have
especially,
do they have like an indoor greenhouse as well
oh my
there?
God, they
Oh,
have an indoor
great.
greenhouse. They have,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a world class, plant breeding facility. They have rose garden with unbelievable variety of roses, some of which have been bred there.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
so it's yeah, like spring, early summer. Going there in the morning and just walking around and smelling the roses is amazing. And lilacs, they have a lilac garden right next to the rose garden. My favorite part of it though is there's a kind of an urban flower garden outside of the greenhouse, which has like um, rosemary and um, catmint and a lot of herbs, and I just love like walking around rubbing things and smelling
Oh, I
them.
do that too at the botanical gardens in my area. There is the Massachusetts Horticultural Society has the gardens at Elm Bank, and they have a whole herb garden. And it's like all the different herbs. It's not just like your standard herbs. There are things like comfrey and
Oh yeah.
lovage and, you
Oh, and
know,
actually, oh, pennyroyal. Have you smelled that?
pennyroyal. Oh,
Is that
that
the
stuff
actual
smells
plant?
beautiful. No, that's a big no-no in perfume. Isn't that like an abortifacient? Like it's
It
not.
is, but it's allowed in fragrance. I mean,
It is really? Oh, okay.
I mean,
How
pregnant
much
women.
though?
I mean, not to tell people what to do with their lives, but pregnant women probably should avoid fragrance in general. Like, it's not something.
Probably if they're carrying and they know they're carrying to kind of just like, give it a break
Yeah,
until, yeah,
fetal
yeah,
development's complicated, and kind of
yeah,
absorbed
yeah.
into your bloodstream through fragrance, and you don't know what they're going to do to anything. So
Right,
anyway,
right.
but
So,
yeah, it's a weird essential oil, but the smelling the fresh plant actually like kind of helped me understand like oh, this is actually what's nice about it.
yeah, yeah. I know that John Beeble really is a fan of Pennyroyal as well. Yeah.
He likes some very weird naturals like
Rue. There's
rue
rue
and
oil. Yeah.
henna leaf, which is hard to use. He's really well in Bermuda. And
Yeah, that's true. That's my one of my favorites of his. Yeah.
he
And
also
I can
managed to
pick it
use
up.
red cedar, which is like really challenging.
Yeah, yeah, that is yeah, that can be a tough one. I love those thujonic oils, the ones that have like thujone.
Hmm.
Obviously like the thuja leaf or anything like in the Artemisia family, like
Yeah, mugwort.
mugwort and wormwood. I love it. Um, it's funny, there's actually a release from Acro, and it's called Haze, and it's supposed to represent sort of fish bowling marijuana, but it doesn't smell like marijuana to me at all. It is I really think that a fair amount of wormwood oil is used. It is like one of the best wormwood
Huh.
centric fragrances, and that's not how they're marketing it because I don't know, maybe people are not familiar
Weed,
enough with wormwood. I thought they
weed
were,
cells.
absinthe, but pot cells, like so, but it doesn't remind me of that at all. There is another question here. Oh, we release it. I'm sorry, Justin CCCCC. You sent this back at 8:50. So you'll have to at
Whatever.
least what were we talking about at 8:50 where that it must be released? If you can remind us, because we've had this lovely meandering conversation here. And as you do that, we have Pat Lester who has a question, another great
Ah,
question for Mark. What were the books that helped you in your path to perfumery?
let
I'm
me grab.
betting you some of these books I own as well.
Oh yeah, let me grab a few. Well, I mean, early on, I read a lot about how the sense of smell works. Stuff
Mm-hmm.
from neuroscientists, or at least based on neuroscientific research. In terms of actual perfumery, this one is
I
exactly.
have that one too. We're gonna do a zoom in here. You're not losing me. You're just zoomed in so we can see that book. Yeah,
And
I
yeah,
have
there's
that too.
it's like most perfumery books, it's an expensive trade book. I think this was like almost $200, maybe. I can't remember. Arcandor,
Yes,
classic.
that's in my library as well. That is an essential.
Yeah, also insanely expensive, and but
Yeah, I know.
worth having as a reference.
Right.
Um, this guy, who apparently is a Trumper in real life. Sorry, I shouldn't get into politics, but Arcadia.
Wait, who is it? I think I have that book too.
It's he was, I gotta say, he was extremely prescient in terms of it's a collection of lectures he gave over the years.
Mm,
And there's articles about Damascones and what she's saying. I think these are going to, be central to the future of perfumery in the, I
mm.
think it was in the early '80s or late '70s. He was saying that.
Yeah,
And
he was absolutely right. Yeah.
yep, and it's a great reference for aroma chemicals. Anything that's come out in the last 40 years, maybe,
Mm, mm,
except for fairly recently, would
mm,
possibly
mm.
be in that, including a lot of stuff that's no longer available. I think. This one's really technical, but
Now
really cool.
I know Philip Kraft. Yeah, that I have that a copy of that as well. Yeah.
It's it's great in terms of kind of getting a general understanding of what the components of natural materials are, how they've been used, how naturals and aroma chemicals have been used in fragrances. When I bought it, I was hoping for a little bit more specific information about how things are used, but it's it was definitely worth the time I spent with it.
Right, right.
And then I don't know. I got Luke Turin's or a couple of Luke Turin books and early on, and uh,
We like Luca here. Some people are very critical of Luca. He's a very sensitive person. Um,
he
but
seems
he
fun.
shoot also shoots from the from the hip. So some people argue that he's not very sensitive to others, but I love Luca. I think, I've corresponded with him. I think that he has a good heart and he's a brilliant mind and he has some fascinating stories of his time, in his line of work. So yeah, if you haven't subscribed to his Substack, I do recommend it.
Oh, I didn't know.
I think he exposes a certain softer side of himself and has a lot of great stories to tell. So yeah,
Cool.
shout out to Luca.
Um,
I love his books as well. His books, especially his reviews with Tanya Sanchez.
uh, and I mean, that kind of is pretty much it in terms of books. A lot of what I learned from was just reading stuff online. And one of the things I would mention as a huge influence on me early on, maybe not even an influence, but a confirmation, was 2015. I came across, there's a blog called Kafkaesque. I don't know if you've,
Ah, yeah, 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 yes, yes.
and she did an interview in two parts with uh, her name's escaping me right now, the woman from Papillon.
Liz Morris.
Yeah, Liz Morris. And it was the first time I'd ever read a description of anyone's process that was all a learning process and in terms of composing that made sense to me. That was like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, I do that too, and that's how I work. And of course, we're both self-taught. We started about the same time, and
Hmm.
she launched, way earlier than me, and more successfully so. Um, but that interview, if anyone's watching this and is like wanting to learn, about perfumery and composition, that is a great interview to read. If nothing else, it'll just, validate all the work you're doing.
Justin CCCC is following up
Oh
with
yes.
us. The unreleased perfume with the that has the band-aid ingredient.
Yeah. Okay. I'll think about it. I'm seriously thinking about releasing it, but so far I've been uh, compliant.
And he also shares that the YouTuber The True Connoisseur puts silver in his all-time top 10.
Oh,
Now we're
Ryan.
we're talking about Ryan. Yes, he was a guest. Well, he was actually a co-host at one point for Effluvium
Wow.
ages
Is
ago,
it?
the first season.
I'm curious, Justin. Is this a recent video of his or an older one? Because I think I might have. I know. I mean, so actually, one of the things that was like totally shocking to me at first, when I first went public, was um, Ryan was one of the first people to buy samples, and this was in fall of 2020. I can't even remember the years anymore. I think it was in the fall of 2021.
I think I
And
learned about you from him, as a
yeah,
matter
that's
of fact.
probably that's
Yeah.
probably right. And so January 2022, he came out with a video of his top 5 fragrances of 2021, which I started watching. And he starts out, saying that he's got one number one that's definite, and honorable mention he's sure about, but the other 4 in between. Sorry, I've been sick recently. The other 4 in between, he wasn't quite sure about the order. So, and I knew he liked silver because he just bought a bottle of it. So I was like, oh, well, maybe silver is going to be in there. And I was like, maybe silver got the honorable mention because anyway, so I started watching it, and the honorable mention went to DS and Durga fragrance. And then there was like Miller Harris and Serge Lutens and all these other, high end brands. And I was like,
Mm.
I almost stopped
Um,
watching it. Then he got to number one and it was silver. And I just, dropped my teeth. I was floored. I could not believe like I've actually still only smelled like 2 Serge Lutens fragrances, but the whole time I was learning perfumery, I was reading reviews online where people were just peeing on his line. They just love it. And it's like
well, it does happen to be the house for which I have the most
I heard you talking
fragrances
about it
from.
here, so
I
the
have a
fact that
long
I beat
history
out a
with Uncle Serge. I first discovered Serge Lutens through visiting Barney's, New York. Some people probably have heard this story like 50 times from me. Walking into a Barney's back in 2008, and yeah, I've been in love ever since. So.
and I know a lot of people feel that way, and so I just assumed that there was no way I was gonna like silver was gonna place ahead of a Serge Lutens fragrance, and it did, and I was just it was like the beginning of my kind of gaining some confidence, I guess, as a perfumer, and my ability to make stuff that could compete with Serge Lutens or anyone. I mean, world's my oyster now.
Well, it was a well-deserved placement, if I may say so myself. Well, I think we're gonna wrap this up because we had a good solid 2 hours. Stick around. We'll have a backstage conversation after we end the live transmission. We'll chat a little bit more and
Sounds good.
share some things that we can't air out publicly.
Sounds
Everybody
legit.
knows that that's what happens in the post transmission, post broadcast backstage conversation. So, folks, thank you so much for tuning into the live broadcast. We have um, one comment that, oh, dang, I missed most of this. We'll catch up on the VOD after. Yes, offenlicht. Please do. Good to see you. And Justin Quintuple C. Thanks, Mark and JJ. Good night. Good night to you as well. We're going to sign off for now. And the next guest is as yet to be announced. Once again, this is a monthly limited series. I'm not going to be doing this as long as the Fluvium. This is a sort of a series that will be running until the spring. Nosedive. I'm glad that you were able to tune in. And if you missed most of it, be sure to watch the playback. And until next time, be well. Talk to you soon.